Good evening and welcome to this edition of Beyond the Politics, a regular examination of the events happening right here in the Quinte region and the people who work so hard behind the scenes to make it all happen. I'm your host, Paul Martin. Welcome to the first show of our third season of Beyond the Politics. We are now firmly in the middle of the municipal election period. As a result, we have to be a little bit more selective on our guests, but we've chosen to talk about what it means to put together a government, what to expect from this election campaign, and some of the intricacies that come with actually running a city the size of Belleville. Speaking of which, our first guest, former mayor of the city of Belleville, and of course, mainstay of McDougall Insurance, Ross McDougall.
Good evening, Paul. Good to be here. Looking forward to it.
And someone who is no stranger to talking about all of the issues I just mentioned, host of the Lorne Brooker Show, Lorne Brooker.
Paul, thanks for asking.
It is a pleasure to have you both here. I have sat in on doing a radio discussion show. This will be a slightly different format, slightly more visual. I don't know if that's better for everyone watching the show.
Slightly more visual, yeah.
So we'll give it a shot. So let's talk about the basics of council. Of course, this is a municipal election campaign, the third campaign of any sort we've had in the last 14 months. Federal, of course, last fall, provincial in the spring, and now municipal coming up for the vote on October 24th. So, Ross, of course, as the former mayor of Belleville, can you give us some perspective? Because I personally think it is a shame that more people don't get excited about municipal government. But one of the main things is I think there's still a perception that some people don't know what it is the municipality does for them. So can you go over some of the things that a municipal government is responsible for?
Yeah, I suppose people do take it a bit for granted what the municipal politicians do. I used to say when I was mayor, my job was to pick up the garbage. And that was the main thing that the mayor had on his plate. But the reality is there are a lot of things, and they're very close to people, which is why I think they take them for granted. I mean, parks and recreation, which everybody really thinks a lot about because it's so important to them. Whether it's the wellness center, whether it's the kids playing hockey, those kind of things are completely within the scope of a municipal politician. The police service, which is obviously crucially important to a municipality, is basically a part of the city of Belleville, even though it is run slightly differently. You've also got Public Works, and that's who fixes the streets and does the potholes and redoes the bridge, like our main bridge in downtown Belleville, which has been redone now for the last 2.5 years.
Oh, we'll have time for
that. And the fire department, of course, which is obviously really important to our community, is part of what the municipal politicians get to vote on. And I think probably the most important thing when it affects you is the planning committee, because the city councilors are, for the most part, making decisions about, can you build a high-rise, can you allow housing in a certain spot, where are flood zones, can we build houses in flood zones like we did 30 years ago? Maybe not so much anymore. Those types of things are really important, and I think people just, take them for granted, and maybe it's not as exciting as talking to Putin about whether he's going to blow up Ukraine, but on an everyday basis, it's pretty important.
Lorne, especially when you talk to your audience, are they getting excited about this election, and is this the kind of election that people would get excited about?
I'm not sure lately if anybody's ever gotten excited about an election at all on all three levels of government. The last election we had was a provincial election, and that wasn't too exciting, certainly in our area. I haven't heard a lot of excitement yet. We had, on my show anyway, so far, 2 of the mayoral candidates for the city of Belleville on, and Mayor Panchuk, I'm not sure, I think he got 1 or 2 calls. I'm not sure where people are right now, if they're even thinking election. They're seeing a lot of signs. But when you look at Quinte West, when you look at the city of Belleville, when you look at Prince Edward County, we're doing pretty good. I mean, our current governments have got us through a pandemic. It's an interesting time for this municipal election, but to answer your question, I don't think there's lots of excitement.
I think we all owe a debt of thanks, and I will express it on behalf of myself, to everyone who's been involved in dealing with the pandemic, whether it be at the municipal, at the health unit level, provincial. This area was one of the last areas to be green and one of the first areas to be in green again. We've been hard hit by the pandemic, but we have been blessed with good leadership and a solid response from the citizenry in keeping people safe and protected.
Yeah, and maybe, now that the pandemic is over, we just like to relax for a while. And maybe, I say the pandemic is over. And
I was going to say.
that it's not quite over.
Joe Biden said it was over.
Yeah, if he can say it's over, of course, he's even older than I am. But I think that I think people want to relax a little bit, okay? I mean, it's been hard, very, very hard on all of us, especially, of course, the frontline workers. But, you wonder if people are just saying, yeah, I don't care who gets elected.
Well, first of all, let's take a step back. So you were mayor 94 to 97, 97 to 2000, if I remember correctly. 3-year terms as opposed to 4-year terms today. Yeah. But 22 years ago was when you were mayor. How have you seen the city? Have you seen the city? It's part of my job. That's why I'm in this chair. Part of the city's changed a lot in 22 years, and you have seen that happen. So how do you see the council having changed? And when people go to the polls today, are they voting for something different, or do you think it's basically the same as it was 22 years ago?
Well, I think they're voting for the same thing. I don't think that part's really changed. The councilors, yeah, I mean, they're different people. The city of Belleville's a lot bigger and a lot better than it was back then, in my estimation. I would look at Belleville 22 years ago and look at it today, and I'd be going, wow, have we ever come a long way? We're really, really better than we were then. And a whole bunch of reasons. I mean, I'm thinking of infrastructure and wellness center and that kind of stuff. But I look at the staff. The staff is better than they were 25 years ago, as it is in most industries, most businesses. So I think we've got a much more sophisticated, better, and bigger municipality than 25 years ago. So I'd be inclined to say, wow, isn't that good?
Ross actually said, it's something I've taken with me for a few years now. When the current council was having a few kind of personnel issues at the beginning, you said to me, I'm not sure if you remember, that nobody runs municipally who are really bad people, right? You don't have any evil people running. They're generally good people around that horseshoe, right? So, I think that people want to do it. I think because of social media, I think because of the fact that there's very little respect for politicians these days on all 3 levels, that some people who might have thought about doing it and really wanting to serve their community are like, I don't need this. This is not something I need in my life. I don't need somebody sending me evil emails from their basement at 2 a.m. threatening to punch me in the face or whatever. Why would you do that for 30 grand a year or whatever they're making, right? So I can understand why less people are doing it. We got to figure out how to make being a politician a respectful job again. Back in the day, Ross, people used to really respect their MPs and MPPs, and it was a thing.
No, I think that's true, and it's less so now. I agree, and I blame social media for a lot of that. Probably not all of that. I mean, I think there's less respect in our society generally, not just for politicians. But I think you're right. I think some people would say, I don't need that. I'm not running.
No word of a lie. I was at an event on the weekend, and somebody of prominence was there. And somebody else, an elected official, came up to the person who was hosting the event and said, you should have put the fact that that person was going to be here on the invitation, otherwise I wouldn't have shown up.
Wow.
It was a completely social event, nothing political at all about it. And so that's where people are. People are full of, again, you might not agree with what Mayor Panchuk or Neil Ellis or Mayor Harrison or Ferguson have done, but they're not bad people. You might not disagree with them. They're still part of our community. We all know them, right? If this is Toronto, would the guy who runs an insurance company really know almost everybody who's running? It would be a different game. And so we have to look at it that way.
Now, social media certainly, I think we can all agree social media has its negative connotations. Useful tool for communication, but I think we can all agree that social media's negativity has an impact. What about the civility on the grassroots level, Rod? Do you find that is that Is that getting in the way of more people running because the average person is less civil or respectful of a municipal politician?
Yeah, it probably has an effect. And again, you know, I look when I was mayor, running for council, doing those kinds of things, it wasn't like that. It really wasn't. I mean, you know, sure, some people would threaten me, but you know, no big deal, because of course you couldn't do it from the comfort of your basement. You had to actually come to my face and say something mean about me or my wife, whatever, and that's a lot harder to do.
Yeah, most people would not do that.
Yeah, no, they don't do that. But so it's changed a lot, and I suspect it is having a negative effect. It's too bad. I mean, you know, for the most part, I think we all like social media, but this sort of evil part of it is really hurting our society.
We've had 2 Trudeaus as prime ministers. What would society have done if there were hundreds of people driving around in their vehicles with F Trudeau flags back in the 70s?
That probably wouldn't have lasted for long, I'm wagering.
Yeah, and it shouldn't last long now.
No, it's terrible.
I hate it. I think probably the 3 of us hate that, but it's out there. You see those little stickers on people's trucks and/or cars all the time. It's
Isn't it
awful.
funny to see?
I can't believe you do that.
Like a minivan, you know, they have the cutouts.
Love your mother, F Trudeau.
They have the cutouts of the kids, the family, and the little dog, and on the other side of the window, an F Trudeau sticker. I mean, seriously, what are you teaching? You might disagree with Trudeau. That's fine. You might hate him completely. That's fine. Well, the next election, vote him out. That's what we do in this country.
I mean, that's the whole point.
And we talked about social media, technology. And just before we wrap up, technology is changing, and the technology we use to elect people is also changing. So Belleville and Quinte West are all electronic voting. Belleville also has telephone voting. In Prince Edward County, they still have paper ballots. Do you think that will have an impact on voter turnout in this election?
No, I don't think it will have any effect, because I think people don't vote in all elections, but we're talking municipal elections, because they don't think their vote makes any difference. They think that the 2 mayors are exactly the same. I'm talking about the 2 likely winners are exactly the same, and they think they don't even know who the councillors are, so they really don't care about voting for them either. People are they just don't care about it, and so if you say, oh yeah, but you can do this thing that you don't care about in 3 seconds instead of 30 minutes, I don't think they'll take the 3 seconds either. So we'll see. I don't believe it will increase voter turnout markedly. So are you saying, oh, it'll go up a point? Yeah, maybe, but it won't move the needle materially.
Will it go up at all? Or is the technology a disincentive for people of a certain age to vote?
Well, I get it very irritated when people call my show and they say they're not going to vote. They're really mad. How is this going to happen? Gosh darn it, this is the worst thing, dagnammit, and whatever, and I lose it. Because you are now putting everybody over the age of 65 or 70 in a bracket that they can't use social media. Well, the fact is, or technology, the fact is they can. So they've been scared about it. You get things that, oh, well, I don't have access to a computer. Well, do you have a phone? Yeah, well, then you can vote, right? If you have none of that, go into one of a bunch of places and somebody will actually help you do it. You know, I know it's a transition. Next Friday on my show, I'm going to have Matt McDougall in to talk about it, to give a tutorial about it. But really, go onto your community's website, and there are videos to watch. It couldn't be easier. You will be mailed. Something.
Sorry, we have to wrap it up, but what he says is correct. Whatever way you can, make sure you find out how. Get out and vote this fall.
He said I was correct. Thank
Yes.
you. That's a good way to end the show.
Lorne's always right.